Welcome back to Word Blindness. This is Juliette Hahn. I am here with my co-host, Brent Sopel, on a wonderful Monday. Whenever this goes out, this is the solar eclipse Monday.
So we're going to start with the solar eclipse thing.
We can, but
I don't care.
This is why I'm giggling. I'm so sorry.
People are traveling to see this.
Yes, I did see it really nicely in 2017. So I thought that we were never going to see it again. So I was a little confused as everyone was talking about it. I was like, wait, I think we did this. I am excited for it, though, in just the universe energy.
Now, if people would care this much for seeing people in pain, that they're going to see the lengths so you see a stupid old solar eclipse, the world would be in a better place. Just things like that. History, I don't give a shit. We're now in present, and are you doing things to make the world a better place today?
Very good points. I stopped giggling. You took that serious real quick, but it's true. It is true. If people literally took the time to see how their neighbor was, to see how people were, see how people's mental health was, we would be in a way better situation than this part. And go ahead.
That's just where I look at so many things. You would history or billionaires or what are you doing to leave the world in a better place than when you came in? Because each one of us has gone through struggles. And through everybody has trauma, and what are you doing to make sure that doesn't happen again to your kids or grandkids or whatever? And the saddest part is that I'm seeing less and less of it.
No, it is really true. It is. And that was actually a perfect segue kind of into this weekend and some of the kids that you have directly impact with the foundation and who you are with your heart, because you really, you are all about that. And again, we've talked about this in all of our episodes. When people think, oh, you're a hockey player, you're just this, you're just that. But like, you are seriously one of the most caring humans that I've ever come across. And it's not just caring, you like have a mission to really, really change things. And that's when the Sopel Foundation came about because of what you went through. But can you take us a little bit? First, every time I talk to you, you've talked, it's like, I just talked to this person. I just talked to this person. And it's really cool to then hear and see you and see where some kids are that you have talked to and counseled through the years. Do you want to take us kind of through that a little bit?
Yeah. The hard part is there's no textbook of how you get through this, and how you come out on the other side. And, obviously the Mr. Negative as
realist.
I was going to get there. I was just starting. Sorry.
Back, Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you did. And just like most people don't see and understand, and there's no textbook, and we're not on chapter 1. We're not on page 22. Okay, now we're on page 33, and we're on chapter 10. There's no chapter book where you can see that you're making progress, and that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard, because everybody wants to be able to see the progress, and in this you don't. Just like you don't see the struggles that we go through, because it is, internally, in our mind. That's why the teachers always said, dumb, stupid, and lazy, right? Because they can't see it. We're not in a wheelchair, and we're not blind. And that's why it's very, very hard for parents when I'm talking to them. Hey, listen, this is a process. This is how we're going to do this. And they get frustrated because it seems like we're not making progress. And they can't look at the book and the textbook and see we're on chapter 4 now, or on chapter 6, or we're on page 200. And probably, maybe the way I go about it too is it's different. I don't know anybody else that goes about it the way I do it, and why I focus so much on self-esteem. And that's why I always say you got to tell a dyslexic, you did a great job. And people look at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because it's that internal struggle, and that's in the dyslexic world. Dyslexics need to advocate for dyslexics because they're not.
I have so many things. So many things I want to say.
Please go ahead.
No, and I love how you just painted that. So a couple of things. First, I want to touch on when you say you're doing a great job. I want you to elaborate on that, because there's times where I don't want a parent to go and then do it and be like, my kid got pissed at me, because there are some. So I want you to elaborate on that. And the reason why is because, say a kid is doing something and it's really not a great job, and the kid is aware it's not a great job, and the parent says it, sometimes the kid will be like I've been called in my house sometimes, oh, you got your mom goggles on. Like, mom, I didn't do like that. Was not that great. You have your mom goggles on. You think it was great because you're my mom, right? So there are situations where you don't want to blow smoke up blow smoke. We're talking about kids, so I won't go there. But you don't want to blow smoke. You don't want to give false stuff. But you're talking about when someone does something that is actually great and it seems minor to the parents. That's when you encourage. You don't encourage, or you say you're doing a great job. You don't do it when it's like a mediocre job, right? So I would love for you to clarify that a little bit.
Actually, I'll clarify, a couple things on what you just said. Even if they don't do a great job, I'll kind of fire back on you on that one. Is maybe not a great job, but maybe a great job.
Right.
Because what this means, we're so deep in struggle, we're so deep in pain that, for an example, if somebody doesn't do a good job and they say, they may drop them, say 10 feet. You tell us we don't do a good job, you just dropped us 50 feet.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now there's a 40-foot difference. Now, the kid who dropped, 10 feet, maybe he's only struggled 1,000 times. We struggled 1,000,000. Because it's all those little things. You just think about how many times that a normal person reads in a day. Let's just say the kid's 10. Both kids are 10 years old. So I always say we've been struggling since the time that we grabbed that first book. Or 6 months old or 8 months old or whatever. Let's just say it's a year. So we've been struggling for 9 years compared to the other kid.
Mm-hmm.
So you take that, 50 feet one time. We're 50 feet 1,000,000 times. So that's how deep in pain, struggle, embarrassment that we are. So when you say you did a great job, we're still 10 million feet deep in pain compared to the kid that, just struggled for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So so we're trying to dig out of a hole that is so deep. So I know exactly what you're saying, but I don't think that applies to us. And that's just that, obviously there's no scientific, that's just me, because the simplest things that we struggle at, there's no recognition of it, no understanding of it. So anytime we can get any kind of positive,
Yeah.
It goes a long ways, because you sit in a classroom, given you're in grade 5, there's been 5 years of teachers or 6 years of teachers not understanding you at all. So to hear you did a great, even if you know you didn't, but we don't process it knowing that we didn't. Just to hear that positive always outweighs the negative for us, because the negative is what dictates and controls our life.
Mm-hmm. And I thank you for clarifying that, because again, there's like the parenting, but people are like, yeah, but in parenting things, they tell you should do this and you should do that. There's always these different, all schools of thought. And that's where it's so important to know your own child. So if you know your child gets frustrated when you are encouraging or not encouraging or whatever, that's where it's like, you know what, let me kind of start at a certain age. This is why it's so important for the diagnosis. And if someone's struggling, to know, because when your child's younger and you're encouraging them in really great spots, right? You're doing a great job here. That's going to be more well received than when your kid's a teenager. Because when the kid's a teenager, you're just kind of, an annoying figure as it is. So I think it's really important that you clarify that, and knowing your child, knowing how your child learns, knowing how your child receives things at the earliest age you can do is important. And when you talk about that 6 months to a year, I also want to clarify, this is what's really cool, is we go back to my personal experience with my son, where he used to point to signs at, like, the second he could lift his hand, he would point to signs and want to read it. And when I said that to you, you're like, oh my God, that's so fascinating. None of my other kids, every time anyone had any writing on their shirt, he would want to know what it is. And this is when he was like, before he was even crawling, it was like the first thing he wanted to do it. And now we know, because he is my dyslexic son, he probably was processing, well, what is that? I'm fascinated with that. Why does that look different? And that's where the IQ thing comes in as well, right? And I haven't said this in a long time, but dyslexia has nothing to do with your IQ. A lot of times our IQs are higher. It's a learning style, and it's the way we receive and process information. And so, and just to take you this weekend, I was actually talking to my daughter this weekend a little bit about, because of all the emails and stuff that I have to do in my new roles. I said some days I'm really, really tired because I have to read it so many times, because sometimes I'll read it and I'll think it means something, and I'll read it and I'll go back and talk about it. And they're like, no, that's not what I meant. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I reread it and I'm like, yeah, okay, need to read that. I have to read things a number of times to make sure what I am getting is what they are putting in the email. And usually what they're putting in email is pretty straightforward. I just have to read it a couple times to make sure that the way my brain is interpreting, and you get really tired.
That's why they always say, a few years ago, I had one of my parents say to me, why is both in high school, why is my dyslexic son going to bed at 9 p.m. and my non at 1 a.m.? I'm like, because we work triple as hard to get through the same things. As you just said, reading that email 3 or 4 times, maybe 5 times to try and process what that actually says. So we're exhausted. I'll never forget this year when I started the rink. For the first 4 months, I've never been that tired in my life. Mm-hmm. I was exhausted past, like I said, nowhere. I could have run 100 miles a day. And that was the first time that I've ever used my brain that way. I could have slept for weeks straight. I was that tired.
And we talked about that on the podcast. And I think it was when I said to you, when Montgomery started the dyslexia school, and it's like when a child starts kindergarten, right? Any kid starts kindergarten, you always see that child's a little more tired because they're using their brain in a different way. But when I said to you, I will never forget, I've never seen him so tired. And it blew my mind. And it was because for the first time he was learning. And this was like in 4th grade. It was the first time he was actually learning the way his brain learned. And all of those years of trying to figure it out. It was like, I can figure this out, in my sleep, because he knew how to get around everything. So, and that's exactly what you were doing at the rink. I remember that was one of the beginning episodes. And I remember you saying, oh my God, I just thought of something. And that was really cool. So I would love to also talk about, well, I want to go back for a second, because a couple other things that you said, I think were really, really important about, because there's no textbook and a lot of people want to see, okay, what is how do you get to A to Z, right? And one of the things, to any of the female listeners, I remember breastfeeding. And this is going to sound really crazy, but I was fine with breastfeeding. I didn't need to see how many ounces I pumped and how many ounces my kid got. But like in the books, it was like, this is how much your kid should get. And I had friends that were like, well, no, I had to pump, or they couldn't do it because it made them so crazy that they actually couldn't see how much their child was getting. And so when you were talking about that, it brought me back to like early motherhood, but it's the same sort of kind of concept. You can't see the progress your child is making when you're working and talking with them. And so the parent is like, yeah, but I want to know, like, okay, how are they going to be at this year? How are they going to be at this year? And at all stages. I mean, now that, my oldest is 18 going off to college, I know that there's a whole nother world out there that we're going to be navigating, in the next stage. But every year you could have big progress. And then sometimes you're going to go back, 4 steps. And then you could sometimes go up six steps. But as you always talk about that, when you have that self-confidence, you bounce back a little faster. So it's like, okay, I can bounce back. So when you're working with the people and you're talking to the families and the children, that is really what the first and foremost you're tackling. So take us through a little bit of some of the stuff. I know the 2, kids on your documentary, they're now, let's start with them. Where are they? And kind of seeing.
Jack's, in a prep school is he in New York, Connecticut?
I think it's, one of those. I think it's Connecticut. I think it's Connecticut. I feel like you told me.
Obviously, we saw that video that I sent you. You wouldn't even know it's the same person.
Yeah.
Not even remotely close to the same person. If you put that video next to the other video that we watch. Again, Cade in the documentary, if you would have saw him 6 months before that, he would have never done that. So it's in a short period of time, but it seemed like a long time. The first thing I said to both of them is we got to make you fall in love with yourself. If you can love yourself, and we talk about this all the time, but those words mean something different to non-dyslexic, because we hate ourselves. We hate getting up in the morning, hate going to school. We like nothing about it, about ourselves, nothing. So it means a little bit something, non-dyslexic. What are you talking about? Why would you do that? Because you guys aren't in the negative mud of what we are on a daily basis. So, now you got, what happened this weekend, little girl that I've been working with, and I'm probably counseling, I don't know, 20 something people on a regular basis. But she was at an event this weekend. She made bracelets, and at a yoga studio they had, I don't even know what the event was. There's probably 40 or 50 tables that were set up through the whole business in some of the studios, and they had a big back room where people are selling the bracelets and soaps and all
like a craft fair. Yeah.
Craft fair. Yeah. Thank you. So I got there, went to see her, and see her at work, was going to go buy a couple bracelets for her. I was probably there 20-30 minutes, and she, obviously just made, I don't know what she had, 100 different bracelets that, that she did make. So, just that in itself was impressive. The table she had set up and had everything. It was, it looked like she'd been doing it for 100 years. It looked like she was there helping mom, not, not the one controlling things, but she was, talking to every person, which one she made, why. And then she had a sign that she was supporting the Sopel Foundation, and some of the money was going to go back to it. And people would ask her why. Why was she doing it? Why this charity? And it was the first time she's ever owned. Yeah, I struggle. I'm dyslexic. I struggle at reading, but no big deal. Or you could hear her doing math, and give her money. The people are paying her. She's going to give change. You could hear her adding it up and trying to figure it out. And I'm not very good. I'm dyslexic. I'm not very good at math too. So take some time, but no big deal. I'll get you. So she sat there and commanded that table, in a way that she wouldn't have done a year ago. She wouldn't have even dared to sit there, or she would have walked in there and walked back out. She would have never, we're standing on the side. She was doing the math. One time, Mom, you're gonna get some money Zelled over here. That's mine. Don't touch it. Okay. Okay, boss. Right. But she, head held high, confidence. At one point in time, Mom was like, all right, we're going to leave at 2. That was, I think event was going to go to 4. Absolutely not. Okay. And loved it. It didn't matter, if they came up to ask, check things out. She was talking to every single person. There's 3 or 4 different people that she sold to as we were standing there. And we're just kind of standing off to the side and let her. It was her table. She controlled her table, and that was her business. And like I said, a year ago, there's not a chance she even wanted to come in there. Even if she had to be there, because at Mom's table, she would have sat in a corner. She would have been in, in a little ball in the corner and talking to anybody. So to see what it is, where she is at in say a year time. Again, a lot with Jack and Cade, that was about a year. The difference in a year is mind blowing. But it's the hard part is in that year is there's struggle. There always will be for us. But that's a prime example of why I focus on that self-esteem first. Now if she can control and dominate a room like that, she's going to get control her education. She's going to control what she can learn and what she wants to learn. That's why I start with that, with that self-esteem, not like anybody else. I don't care about Wilson Reading or Arden Gillingham or this math class. I don't give a shit. Because if you don't have self-esteem in life, you're going nowhere. And if you do, you can go anywhere you want.
So true. It's so true. And she's 11. And just you guys sending me the pictures and the smiles on your face. Even when you're just telling the story, I got chills. It's so incredible. And being obviously a parent that's dyslexic, but also being, a mother of a dyslexic child, being an aunt of a dyslexic child, being the daughter of a dyslexic father. I know how important those things are, right? I know how important. I've been on both sides. I've been, where my sisters called me up and, my nephew was like, he doesn't want to go to school. How are you dealing with, does Montgomery ever not want to go to school? And going through that. I was fortunate that he was one that just kind of sucked it up and dealt with it and figured it out. But we also had a number of years of a dyslexic school, right? And so, um, which was really fortunate for us. And not it's not that way for everyone. But just knowing that your impact, the way you talk to, I mean, because I remember when you met this family. I mean, I remember it was in the beginning of, I think, right around, or you maybe had already just met them, but I remember you talking me through some of the stuff. And then, so just for me to even be here to then see that and the pictures and like what this little kid did, it's just like, it's so incredible. And that's what you were all about. And the foundation's all about. And it just it's just an amazing feeling to see it unfolds, because again, we've been on both sides. We've been on all sides. And so to see those little things, like just your efforts, the way you handle things, the way you talk to people. And it's unfortunate that not everyone gets to see that. Right. And that's why building the Sopel Foundation is so important, because there's so many people out there that don't have the resources, that don't understand, that don't know, and don't have the way, they don't know about you and what you have done for other kids and other people. And so that's, again, why we started Word Blindness, to get that out.
I know it'll continue to get out. The hard part is it's a different approach.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not an approach that can be written down.
Right.
Like, because every person's different. Every kid's different. We're talking about a little girl right now, and what she needs is different. And when the next kid's going to need it, and the next parent, and if you don't have you don't have it, you don't understand it. And obviously we use that point all the time here, is if you're talking to the teacher, or you're talking to the superintendent or principal or dean or whatever the title they may be that you're speaking to, they don't have it, they don't understand it. And that's the hard part about this. It's every kid that I work with, I've got some of the parents want it to go quicker. They don't see it. They all want to jump to 10. We all do. But we can't.
Mm-mm.
It's not 10. It's 1, 2, 3. And that's the problem, is that if you don't do that, no matter who you are, you're going to struggle. Because we can't go to 1 to 10. A lot of space in between there gets missed. And when that gets missed, that weakens that foundation. That's when, like hockey, I won't veer off what I'm doing. And everybody wants to go and do this and fast this and then this. No, I'm going to build the foundation for your kid. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. Because I refuse to veer off to not have a foundation. Because if you don't have a foundation, you've got nothing. And that's what this process is that self-esteem, is building that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Not easy.
No. And as a parent,
easy.
right? As a parent, the last thing you want to do is see your kid struggle and hurt and be in pain. I mean, that's the last thing. We're all put on this earth to not have our kids go through that. That's like the last thing we want. So trusting in the process, when you have the skills and you know what you're doing, because we've been there, is really important. But it is a really difficult thing. But that's where also parents grow. So it's not only are you helping the kids with the self-esteem, you're also helping the parents be able to understand, especially if they're not dyslexic, even if they are, some of them maybe don't know they are, whatever the scenario is. As you said, every approach has to be taken different, because every family, every person is different. So I also want to go to another, family that they're in Canada, and you really suggested the school was killing this kid. I mean, it was killing this kid. And you're like, everything you knew that you needed to help. And you were like, this is really what I believe. The mother did. And that kid, again, because you put me in touch with them as well, the text of like, I've never seen her so happy. This is incredible. But it was one teacher and one school district and one school that didn't understand it.
Mm.
And it was, you can't just like, they weren't going to get it. They were not going to get it. And you have to sometimes chalk that up and be like, okay, where are my efforts better kind of put? Trying to change the school and change this teacher's mind is not going to be. So how can I save my child? And lucky enough, they were able to move and figure it all out. But that is not easy too. That's scary, right? Is it going to happen again? Is it going to happen again? But that's where they have to trust in you in the process.
Yeah, and that's the hard part is, being a dumb Canadian hockey player is I'm always known as, and there's no textbook to this. Yeah, I know. I'm not going to sit here and say I know everything, but struggling as long as I have and what I can see and what I know, a lot of it, you're like, what are you talking about? You have no idea what you're talking about. That is the dumbest thing ever. And that's probably 80% of the narrative that comes back. And just stick along and I'll erase out of that 80% very quickly, because that's why it's so hard, because it is very different. We are different. We process, like, that's why, I was asking guy, I'm like, because he's divorced. And he's like, I think my wife, my ex-wife's dyslexic. I'm like, well, let me ask you a question. So if you ever, asked her something and her answer was crazy or weird or way out there, he's like, what do you mean? So I, started talking about, when I'm on the highway, I'm driving I see every license plate in every car. He goes, why would you look there? I'm like, you just thought I was weird by asking that question, right? And seeing what I see. Yeah. Now go back a question when I just asked you about your ex. He's like, oh, you're probably right. And as we started speaking more and more, yeah, she is. I remember last spring? Yeah, so about a year ago. I remember I was coaching and mites there, so it's 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, little guys. And the one dad's like in the group text, my son's not feeling well. He won't play the game. He had a bunch of tests this week, sorry. But I can meet somebody at the rink so I can give you the goalie equipment, because he was the goalie. Okay, get there. I start talking to his dad. He's like, yeah, we've had stomach issues, done tests. And, I said, all right, keep me posted. But I said, I think it'd be a good idea to look into school. Something's going on there. Now, this conversation was about 15 seconds long before I figured that out. I don't know, maybe spring is over, so it would have been, going right into August probably. So this would have been, 4 months later in between. He's like, came up to me, Brent, I just want to say thank you. Probably don't know why I'm thanking you. I'm like, no clue. He goes, that teacher, he said, is no longer working in the school district. I didn't get into why. I didn't ask questions. But in a 15-second conversation, that's all it was. I told him to do that because I knew, and that teacher got fired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because kids with stomach, I mean, there's like all of these little signs that point to it, right? It's nerves, it's anxiety. There's a lot of different things. And this also goes into just knowing your child. Because even if your child's not dyslexic and they're coming home and they're saying the different, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to do this, you got to look into it, because there's something bigger going on that needs to be addressed. But as you say, not as you say, as we know, I mean, you're super intuitive. You also can read people really, really well. And that's one of the gifts of dyslexia. I mean, any person that we've ever, talked to, they're like, oh, it is. So interesting. It is one of the things that blind people, right? There's other senses that are heightened. If you're deaf, some of your other senses are heightened with dyslexia. That seems to be something that runs and spectrums of all of it, right? Some people are more intuitive, more in touch with that than others. Some people's dyslexia is stronger than others. It's the whole spectrum. But and I'm going to ask you. I don't think I know the answer. I'm still going to ask you. Oh, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it, or if you're listening, he's putting his head down. That means he doesn't know what I'm going to ask, and he's like, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" When you saw the family this weekend and you watched the little 11-year-old, what feelings go through your mind and your body?
Not really many. Happy to see, happy for her, happy for her mom, her dad, but it was nothing for me. It's what I am. It's who I am. It's what I do. That's why I'm still here. Shouldn't be here. My lives, 9 lives, the drugs. I'm here for a purpose. And that's why my story's never about me. Yes, that Saturday wasn't about me. It was about that little girl and seeing that smile that she had on her face, the confidence that she never had before. So it would. I had no feelings to it because of what I am. It's the feelings that she got is all that mattered.
And I'm going to take it just so someone can understand also that when we talk, I have talked to many entrepreneurs. And one of the things that was really interesting, some of the most successful entrepreneurs that I've talked to have, I have said to them, because I've been in the world where it's like you have the ups and your downs, right? It's like, oh my God, it's the best day. Oh my God, it's the worst day. It can happen within hours. Yeah. And you can't let those emotions, you can't stay in the high. A woman, and I love this so much because it was really in the beginning of when I was starting my business. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. She said, you can't stay in the highs too high and you can't stay in the lows too low. And that's exactly what you do when you help people, right? You can't, because physically you wouldn't be able to do what you're doing if when someone's really down and their family's down and they're crying, like if you take on, even though you're an empath, but if you take on all of those emotions, which you do some, I know there was a little happy, and I'm sure if I ask Elizabeth, she would say that you had like a silly grin on your face, but I'll let you
do.
But I'll let you stay with that narrative because that's fine, because it helps me explain this. But I mean, truly, if you get too caught up in the lows of others and then the highs of others, you can't do your job as well. And you can't make the change as big and as broad if you did, because you would have to check yourself. And I think all of the stuff that you've gone through in your whole life has set you up for that, because I literally was like teary crying. I'm like, oh, I'm so happy, but that's like those kind of things. I'm not good at self-regulating those emotions. I get in the lows and the highs, and we have to bounce back from them. But I think that's why you are so successful in what you do. And also just to see where the foundation is going to go with all the things, because your life has you've had to kind of do that.
My highs and my highs are so high and my lows are so low personally, in my personal life, but not in my professional life.
Yeah.
If just to make the wording easier, my personal life is pretty fucked. But when it comes to other people, what I do for the foundation, I'm able to do different things on different levels. So to be able to do what I do, I can't be in that zone. I'm already in that zone enough in my personal life. So when I'm working with other people and the things I've had to listen to, Liz was like, "Oh my God, the things people tell you, deaths and suicides, it doesn't. I don't take it. I know what to do with it. I know what the words mean, where they're supposed to be, how to put it, school, different things. So my personal life is a roller coaster. I'm really high and real low. But when I'm working with people, it's not. And the hard part is to get people to understand and listen in things that they can't see. I guess almost like religion. You have to believe.
I'm going to leave it at that. Look at you, mic dropper. That was really good. So right now in the new season, sometimes we're cutting it, right? We don't need to go the hour. We're giving you guys some really good information. Keep checking out the website because we are adding and adding and adding some really cool things. As we have said in every episode, there's some big things happening behind the scenes that are really exciting. And I can get really excited. Brent can stay even, but I can do the crying and the angry and all these things for this. I can take all of that on. But thank you guys again for listening. We say it every single time. Like, rate, review, and share, because you don't know who out there right now is like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. My back's against the wall. I don't know how to fight. I don't know how to take the emotions out of it. Well, this guy knows how to. So, call and text, email, whatever you need to do. Brent, that's what you're here for. So thank you always for, being such a great co-host and getting the word out. I'm just giggling today. The solar eclipse is getting me.
Oh, jeez. How much? We got another 2 hours. You know where you're going to go?
I'm going to right out my window.
I'm going to try and plan my nap during the solar eclipse.
And you heard it here first.
Yeah, that's how much I care.
Thanks again for joining Word Blindness Dyslexia Exposed.